there, everybody? Welcome to Zone Defense. We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and hit that subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. Also, let us know if you think Jonathan Taylor will go first overall in fantasy drafts next year after his monster 5-touchdown performance last week. Today we'll be doing our Week 12 NFL game picks. How's it going, Roman?
I'm good, Drew. Obviously, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I'm wearing my turkey hat again. It's tradition for me. But Chris is unfortunately not here today. Also, thank you to Jordan for filling for me last week. But I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm kind of upset because I had a 5-game lead a couple weeks ago, and now I'm last out of the three of us. So I don't know how that happened really quickly, but hopefully I can get out of the cellar. And Thanksgiving week would be a perfect week to do so.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how I have a 3-game lead either because I was pretty back there a couple weeks ago as well. So I'm sure it'll come back around in your favor, Roman. But how about you get us into the news and notes for today?
Yep, for sure. Mostly for Thanksgiving, we have a couple big injuries. Justin Fields, he had a rib injury that he got out of last week's game versus Baltimore. Andy Dalton had to come in, did fairly well, and he'll start on Thanksgiving against Detroit. So expect a Dalton v. either Boyle or Goff matchup. So that's going to be really good. For the Cowboys, a couple big injuries. Ezekiel Elliott, he got banged up with a knee injury last week against the Chiefs. He stayed in the game, and he looked like he should play, but we'll have to see. And then CeeDee Lamb, a concussion, and he'll probably be out too. So that's two big, brutal injuries for Dallas, not only having Lamb out, but also not being without Amari Cooper, who has COVID. So being without their top 2 wide receivers should be very much interesting for that Dallas offense in that game. Next, Michael Carter, the running back for the Jets. He's been coming on strong the past couple weeks, but he has an ankle sprain, and he'll be out at least 1 to 2 weeks. I think they'll be all right, though, because that Jets backfield is actually kind of decent with Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman, so they should make up the difference within his absence. But next injury, A.J. Brown, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, had a rib injury. He's questionable, but he avoided serious injury when he tested negative on his MRI, so we'll have to see if he plays this week. Good thing it's not too bad. Just kind of, it's not in the news and notes doc, but just to kind of talk about the Titans a little bit more, they did cut Adrian Peterson yesterday, the day as we're recording, and they also signed Golden Tate, so a veteran wide receiver, both ex-Lions AP. Golden Tate, one's out, one's in. Tate, I doubt he plays this week, but he should he should get some action fairly soon with Julio Jones still on IR. But next injury, Adam Troutman had his best game of the season last week, but he got a knee injury. He got put on IR, and he'll be out at least 4 to 6 weeks, so it kind of sucks for him. Again, of the States offense also playing on Thanksgiving night. So next injury, Jordan Howard, running back for the Eagles. He got a knee sprain. He's expected to be out this week against the Giants. We could probably see him in week 13, but we'll have to see. He was a backup anyway, so it'll be Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell as well. So that shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then 2 players who are out for the year, Jamal Agnew, former Lion, kind of a gadget guy for the Jaguars now. Got a hip injury. He's out for the year. Kind of sucks because he was coming on strong. He was getting a lot more attention down in Jacksonville and around the league as well. So it kind of sucks for him. And then Elton Jenkins, offensive lineman for the Packers. Probably the best offensive lineman, not including Bakhtiari. He has a knee injury, and he's also out for the year. So another brutal injury for that Packers team, but I think they'll be all right without him. Next, we have some contract extensions that got announced over the past few days. Cortland Sutton, notably with the Broncos, 4-year, $60 million extension. So that's good for him. He was going to be a free agent, so they locked him up, and they have a good duo in him and Judy as well. Not to mention they have Hamler and Tim Patrick, who's also had a good year as well. So I like that group for the Broncos, really nice. Next, Dallas Goedert, tight end for the Eagles, 4 years, $57 million. That's a good move for them. Obviously, they traded Ertz away, so it's good they locked him up. And then lastly, Taysom Hill kind of had a restructuring of the contract in the offseason, but this is a separate extension. This is a 4-year deal that can range from anywhere between $40 million to $95 million, depending on the position he plays. So obviously, if he's playing more wide receiver, running back, whatever, he'll probably get a lesser deal than if he was playing quarterback, which I don't know how you feel about Drew, and you can say your thoughts in a little bit. I don't know how that speaks to the confidence they have in Jameis Winston if they're giving him quarterback-ish money. So we'll see how they use Taysom. in the next few years. I mean, they still have Trevor Siemian as their quarterback. I think if they wanted to, if they were going to pay Hill all that much money, then he should be starting as a quarterback right now. But we'll save that for later. Next, the Giants fired offensive coordinator Jason Garrett, formerly of head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. They lost on Monday Night Football against the Bucs, 30-10. So not a great showing at all. I understand why they fired him. I expect him to get a job fairly quickly. I can even be a head coach next year if he really wanted to. I think the Bears potentially and the Raiders could be good openings for him, but we'll have to see. And in the meantime, Freddie Kitchens will take over as the offensive coordinator for the Giants. And then lastly, as you kind of mentioned at the top, Jonathan Taylor, is he worthy of the 101 next season for fantasy drafts? I'll leave that to you to start, and I'll kind of follow up with you after.
Yeah, so I think I feel like he is, because I mean I think CMC is probably on paper better than him in terms of a first overall fantasy pick. But I mean this year, and obviously this year, and then also last year, he just banged up way too much, I feel like. So I don't think he can be the number one. And Taylor doesn't really have the same injury concerns that some of the other big name running backs, like as you know, Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, not Ezekiel Elliott. Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel's not going to 101 anymore. But yeah, so I think and if you look at Taylor, like in terms of his trajectory, he's still like, this is only his second season. So that's kind of crazy to believe as well. So he's only going to get better most likely. I think the Colts are a really good team overall. I think they're very underrated. I picked them last week to win. Shout out to me. So yeah, I think he's a good player, and I think that's why I feel like kind of like, I think like we did in our fantasy preview episodes this year, there wasn't like a clear cut number one guy, even with CMC. So I think Taylor, just in terms of his age, his injury concern, how good he is, it just makes sense that he'd be the 101. I guess the only other guy that I can think of is like Nick Chubb too, because he's relatively younger as well, at least for next season. But he also has the same injury concerns that a lot of the other guys do as well. So maybe DeAndre Swift too. I think he's a first round pick, possibly also. They just got to get a better quarterback, I think, and then he could be really, really good also. And then I can touch on some of your things real quick. I think the only other big thing I really want to talk about, all the injuries obviously suck, but we don't have to get too. And I think you covered all those pretty perfectly. Jason Garrett is getting fired. I mean, it's like kind of surprising, but not really, because I think Chris and I maybe talked about this when he originally got hired. It was before 2020, the 2020 season, and we kind of bashed it because we didn't think it made any sense, because he sucked in running the Cowboys offense. He wasn't good at that, so why would he be good at running the Giants offense? I think overall he just stunted it. I don't think it's all his fault, because they have had, like, Kenny Golladay hasn't been what he was projected to be. Plus they've had just a ton of injuries across the board. And it wasn't like he made Daniel Jones bad, but he didn't make Daniel Jones better either. And I think that's what people were expecting him to do. So I'm really excited to see, for Daniel Jones's sake, if they're able to get a new OC in there and maybe kind of unlock him, because I do think he's been pretty solid this year. So, and then I know you have one thing to touch on with that.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention Freddie Kitchens. I mean, this is the second time he's been interim offensive coordinator for the Giants, and I think he's taken over for Cleveland as well. And traditionally, I think that he's had a pretty much an uptick in performance. He's actually done a good job as an interim coordinator, not as much as a head coach,
Yeah.
but he has a record of at least improving the team in those areas when he takes over. So maybe we'll see an improvement by the Giants. They're not totally out of the division yet. So we'll see what happens. And for Daniel Jones' sake, I hope he does better, because he's on the hot seat pretty shortly.
Yeah. I think this is like his last chance as well. Because the Giants feel like they've just been in this like rebuilding, but not really rebuilding anything mode for the last couple of years. So, and then the last thing was, you said the Taysom Hill extension. That is interesting. I think maybe, I mean, he's getting paid though, like you said, which is a lot of money, and the Saints already kind of had a pretty filled up cap as well. So it's interesting that they would give him that much money. And maybe Jameis isn't their guy, because it wasn't like, I mean, Jameis was okay, but it wasn't like he was setting the world on fire either when he was healthy. And with his injury too, maybe they don't want to risk it. And I don't know. It is a lot of money, because I feel like he's more of a backup, like, bit player than a starting quarterback in the NFL. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I don't really agree with it fully, to be honest with you. But we'll just have to wait and see, because I do think they could be one of those teams that either drafts a quarterback or tries to trade for a quarterback or sign a quarterback in the offseason. That could be an interesting landing spot for Russ or Aaron Rodgers, even though I believe both teams said they don't want to trade in conference, which makes sense. But
Yeah.
did you have anything
Well,
else you wanted to add with the news and notes?
yeah, a couple of things with Taysom. Obviously, if they are paying him as a gadget guy, he hasn't been doing much the last couple of weeks, anyways. I mean, even with Trevor Siemian as a starter, I don't think he's had a touchdown anytime soon. So if they're gonna pay him like he's a gadget guy or pay him like he's a quarterback, at least use him like it. I mean, he hasn't really done a whole lot. So for his sake, I think the offense is just better when he's involved too. They've been kind of slow the past few weeks, so I think Taysom Hill needs to get back out there pretty soon as a quarterback or a gadget guy. And I think their offense is just better as a whole. But I want to talk about Jonathan Taylor just for a second. I know you touched on it. I don't think he's the undisputed 101. I mean, the past few years, his ADP has been obviously criticized, whether he was a rookie year. He was going as like the third round. Many people thought that was too high. This year, he was going late first, early second. People thought that was too high. But now I think you can definitely look at him as a 101 pick. I think Christian McCaffrey could go 101 still. I mean, he was hurt for a little bit, so that's obviously going to be weary for some owners. People who took Dalvin Cook at the 2 spot are probably a little bit upset because I don't think he was a good return on investment. He hasn't played like a 2 overall pick. Chubb, you mentioned, he's been out for a few weeks too. But when healthy, he's fine. Swift, I think he'll take a leap. I think Austin Eckler could be in the conversation. I wouldn't say he's going to be. I don't think many people would take him 101, but I think he's been coming on strong as well. So I think Taylor has definitely a case for it. I think Henry would have if he didn't get hurt. He might come back later in the season anyways, but I think next year might be a little bit more wide open as who you take 101 instead of just being one undisputed guy.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is I think unlike it feels like forever since I've been doing fantasies. There's like, oh, this is the guy that's number 1 overall, and I think maybe for next year it's going to be a little bit different because there's not going to be that clear cut guy. It's probably, I mean, I know you and I are in multiple different leagues. There's probably, I wouldn't surprise me if a different guy goes 1 overall in different leagues. So that's something we don't have to worry about right now. We still got a whole half of an NFL season to worry about, plus playoffs and Super Bowl. But it is always an interesting conversation to have and look into. But let's dive in now to the NFL Pick'em. So we got Bears Lions Thanksgiving Day. I'll just let you take it away here because you got the turkey hat on. I believe you're going to be there at the game as well. So I think it's only fitting that you're the one that decides who's winning this game first.
Right. All right. Look. Okay. The Bears, they're in a tough spot right now. They're about to fire their head coach. Obviously, this game could be what this was last year for the Lions after Thanksgiving. We got blown out by the Texans. We fired Patricia and Quinn. This could be the same for the Bears if they lose to us. It'd be pretty embarrassing for them. Obviously, they're not coming in with Fields, and we played Fields earlier in the season, so we'll expect Andy Dalton to play. He's not a scrub, but I don't think he's as good as Fields. Obviously, for the Lions, they lost 2 in a row, or they lost last week and then tied the week before. Both competitive games, both kind of ugly. I expect Goff to play. I mean, it could be Tim Boyle, it could be Goff. We don't know right now as we're recording. Either way, I think we'll be in an all right spot. I think they just got to get Hawkinson in the game. They got to get Swift rolling. Khalil Mack's out for the year for the Bears. I don't know if you touched on that last week or this week, but it could be a close game. It's going to be an ugly game, but one of those ugly games where it could be competitive. Obviously, this is a tradition at this point for national media and fans all across the world say, why are the Lions playing on Thanksgiving? And to that, I say, shut up, all right? Let us have it, all right? But I think this is going to be a good game. Obviously, the Lions still need to work out some kinks on offense. I got to take the Lions. I think it will be a game that we can win. I wouldn't. Chris took the Bears, obviously, but I think the Lions definitely have a chance to win this game. I think it took them last year to beat the Texans on Thanksgiving, and obviously that didn't work out. But I think this year is a winnable game, and for our sakes, we need a win on Thanksgiving. So,
yeah, I'm gonna take the side of Chris here for a second because if he was here, I feel like he would say this might be the worst Thanksgiving game of all time. I mean, geez, Tim Boyle versus Andy Dalton. It's just two bad teams playing football. Both their backups are in, and even like last week. I mean, again, like you got to give credit to the Lions where it's due, right? I mean, they were in that game, right, against the Browns.
Our defense is improving every week. Aaron Glenn,
the defense is. Yeah. I mean, they shut. I mean, I know Baker's limited, and I know Mason Rudolph is Mason Rudolph, but like they got a solid defense. I think it's just their offense, and even again. maybe I'm not taking the side of Chris because I know Chris would not say this, but I think they have a solid offense. It's just they don't have a quarterback.
The offensive line is fantastic.
And DeAndre Swift's really good. When Hawkinson's good, but the problem when you're a really good tight end or wide receiver is you're only good when you get the ball, and when you have someone that can't get him the ball, your stats are gonna look bad. But when he gets the ball, he's electric. He's dynamic. So I think they have a good offense. They need some receivers too, obviously. But I think they have an overall good offense. It's just literally the most important position in arguably all of sports. They don't have one. Right. I know you and I both bought Jared Goff jerseys over the winter, which was a bad investment.
Mistake. Yeah.
He sucks. Tim Boyle sucks. I think it's time for David Blau to get in here. I mean, yeah. And yeah, I mean, I went to a training camp. I watched the preseason games for the Lions. I think David Blau was clearly the best quarterback on the field at most of the points. I don't understand why he's not the one playing. Because Tim Boyle sucked. No offense to Timmy Boyle, but he sucked in training camp, sucked in the preseason, and then last week everyone's like, "Okay, let's get Timmy in here." Doesn't make any sense. But with all that being said, this is going to be a terrible game. I'm sad I'm going to have to watch it because I am a Lions fan, and it's just what you do on Thanksgiving. It's like opening presents on Christmas morning. It's just part of tradition. It's what you have to do. But this is going to be a terrible game, just disgusting to watch. I think the Lions could very well win this game, believe it or not. But I'm putting the Bears down because I think Andy Dalton is a way better quarterback than Tim Boyle, David Blau.
That's fair.
Jared Goff, whoever the heck is back there. Even though I think the Lions are a better team outside of that, believe it or not.
Well, I mean, the Bears are on a downhill trajectory. The Lions are kind of like basically even. I'd say they're not getting better or worse, but
yeah, I agree.
I think Goff will play personally. I think it's gonna be weird to say, but it'll help the offense because literally last week only one wide receiver was targeted, and that was St. Brown. I mean, Raymond didn't make an impact. What's his face? Josh Reynolds didn't catch a ball.
He looked awful.
I think Goff will at least try and spread the ball around a little bit more, whether it's 10 yards downfield or 2 yards downfield. That's to be seen. But I think if we just get Hawkins the ball, that's more important than I think spreading the ball around. So, and I don't think the Bears defense is that great, obviously without Mac. So it's definitely possible. And obviously the only thing we have to worry about on offense is Montgomery, he was kind of easing back into the offense, and Mooney, who's been coming on strong the past few weeks too. So I think if we lock down Mooney, I think we'll be fine.
It's also a homecoming game for Allen Robinson, so maybe he can finally remember how to play football this week.
Oh yeah,
and have a good game. Him. Honestly, I think Allen Robinson though is another good example of a guy like Hawkinson, where I don't think he's a bad player. It's just he doesn't have a great quarterback. Nope. So that's a guy maybe we could bring in. We draft a quarterback, bring in A-Rob. He's our wide receiver one. There we go. We're off and running. But anyway, we spent way too much time on, as Chris would say, a crap game because I don't think it's going to be very fun or entertaining to watch for sure. But now we've got the Raiders and the Cowboys. This is probably the best things. I don't know, because Dallas sucked last week. They had a ton of injuries, just all across the board. And CD's obviously out now. That was probably the worst game Dak has ever played, at least in a very long time. He didn't look great. But the Raiders are obviously on a downward trajectory as well. So I think it could be a semi-interesting game. Really, honestly, the Thanksgiving slate this year is not great. All three of these games, I'm not like super excited to watch. Yeah. But I'm gonna go. I think this is probably the best one because I feel like the Raiders could definitely come out on top. It seems like they always thrive in primetime, even if they're not like a great football team. But I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, like Chris, and you're also gonna go with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty hesitant to pick them just because I think the Raiders can win this game. Obviously, they're not dealing as many injuries as the Cowboys are, especially on offense. So, I mean, Dak is healthy, so as long as he's playing, you have a chance. And I think their offense is better than the Raiders' offense, regardless of who's playing. And that defense is also coming on strong. Micah Parsons, probably going to be defensive rookie of the year. So I think that those factors alone should keep them in this game, regardless of the wide receivers that they have.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, like I said, I think the Raiders, this is the one game where I feel like there's not like a clear-cut favorite, which is weird because I think a week ago I said the Cowboys might make it to the Super Bowl. But after what happened last week, I don't know. With the injuries, they just didn't look really good, but I think this could be a get-right game for Dallas as well. All right, now we've got the Bills and the Saints. For me, I mean, this is a clear cut. I think it's the Bills, even though I think they're not in first place anymore in the division, which is kind of crazy to think. I did not think, especially based on like the preseason and the way the season started, I did not think the Patriots would be able to win the division and lead the division this late in the season. But I think the Bills are still a better team than the Saints. We already mentioned their kind of quarterback troubles, so I think I'm going Bills here pretty easily. Sorry, I think I just stole your turn as well.
No,
So
you're good. I think the Bills have just been underwhelming this year. I mean, I expected much better from them, especially on offense. Josh Allen has not been particularly well. For the Saints, though, I think this game they could win. I think all three of these Thanksgiving games are up in the air. Kamara, who hasn't played for the past few weeks, is still questionable, and even Ingram picked up an injury as well. So they might be rolling in without both of them. In which case, I would hope the Bills would shut them down on offense. Besides that. But I hope Kamara comes back soon, as well as Ingram, because their offense runs through them, especially with the Troutman injury. Uh, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them, too. So maybe we see more of Taysom in this game, maybe not. But I think Buffalo should win this game, and then it should set up some great games with him and the Patriots.
yeah, I agree. I think it's just going to be a really fun kind of down the stretch between the Bills and the Patriots. I can't wait for those matchups because I know the Bills kind of quote unquote shed their Patriot demons last season, but the Patriots are back in the fold here, and I think I don't know if you're a Bills fan, you got to be a little nervous here. I think to say the least. But all right, now we'll move away from the Thanksgiving games. And actually, real quick before we do that, though, I think you're right. I think each of these games, they're not like sexy matchups, but I do think they could each be close games. There's not I really outside of the Bills and the Cowboys. Like if it was Bills
Well,
Cowboys, I would
I
be
think
really excited. But
I think if the Bills Saints game was like fully healthy, like Jameis Winston,
yeah,
Kamara,
I
Michael
agree.
Thomas, I think it was a good idea before the season, but now it's looking like it's not. But we'll have to see.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. But now we'll actually move away from the Thanksgiving games. We'll go into Steelers, Bengals. Who do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm taking the Steelers. I think their defense is just too good for Cincinnati to face. I think this is a game Cincinnati could very well win, though. That offense against Pittsburgh's defense, and they've been without T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick the last couple weeks. So hopefully both of them return. That'll be their saving grace in this game. Whereas Cincinnati, I mean, they did it to Baltimore, where they just came out strong out the gate, put an offensive clinic on them. So I think that could possibly happen, but I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh just because of that defense and Big Ben needs to be a lot better too.
Man, I was really hoping you picked Cincinnati because this would have made my decision a lot easier. But um, like Cincinnati, I mean, they were like the hot team to start the year. We were all really high on them, and then they haven't played as well recently. In Pittsburgh, I feel like kind of the same. They just kind of been the whole season. Give me Cincinnati. Give me Cincinnati. At home. I'm probably gonna just completely shoot myself in the foot and mess up the lead I have currently. But give me Cincinnati over Pittsburgh. I think this could be a very very close game overall. Okay, now we've got Tampa Bay and Indianapolis. I mentioned at the top, Indianapolis had a huge win against Buffalo, and really outside of this Tampa Bay game, I believe their schedule gets for the most part a lot easier down the stretch. So even if they lose this game, the fact they were able to beat Buffalo last week is massive for them in terms of I think they're going to sneak into that AFC wildcard spot, and even with Tennessee's injuries, they might even be able to win the division. Who knows? But I think this could be a very intriguing matchup, and since I took two, you can do it with this one first as well. Who do you like between the Bucks and the Colts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Jonathan Taylor is the reason that they are fighting for the playoffs in the first place. I think when he's not doing too much, he's really good too. So I think those two combined are putting them in a really good spot. And like you mentioned, their schedule doesn't get any harder down the stretch. They can pretty like I want to take him versus Tampa Bay, but I'm gonna go with Tampa just because of the experience. Tom Brady had a good performance last week. Their offense as a whole were running smoothly against the Giants. Antonio Brown, hopefully he's back. He's been out for a while. So he needs to return. And look at Tom Brady with a 11-yard run. That was pretty sick against the Giants. So I like Tampa in this game, although Indy could very well win.
Oh, man, you keep putting me in these tough spots, Roman, because I'm not gonna. I went Cincinnati, so I'm gonna go Tampa Bay with this one. Even though I don't think Tampa Bay looks like the juggernaut that they have that they did last year at this time, but I am gonna go with them. I'm already really regretting it, to be honest with you.
You can change it.
No, I'll stick with it. I'll stick with Tampa Bay. I see some other matchups I might get a little crazy with. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be a really good game. This might be Rams Packers probably the game of the week. This might be the second game of the week though, or the next one we're about to talk, or the two, not the next one we're going to talk about. 2 ones from now, Tennessee, New England. Each of those 3 games I think are going to be really, really high level games, which is going to be really great to watch. And obviously Jets Texans as well is a really high level game. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a good game. I want to pick the Colts. They helped me out last week, but I'll go Tampa Bay. I'll go with everybody else on this one. Okay, now we've got Carolina and Miami. Yeah, I don't know how you got the 2 good ones to start, and I screwed myself by having to do this one. I think it's going to be Carolina. I think pretty easily. I know Chris went Miami, somewhat surprisingly. They definitely looked better the last couple weeks, but I got to go Carolina just because they got CMC's back. They got Cam. It seems like they're kind of trending in the right direction, and it seems like you agree. And I think that NFC, it's very top heavy. So like you got like the top teams, and then you kind of have these other teams, and some of them are going to sneak into the playoffs. I think Carolina could definitely be one of those teams, as long as they stay healthy and their defense stays as good as it is right now.
Yeah, I'm taking the Panthers too. I think Cam Newton, he started off pretty good in that last week game, but kind of finished not as strong. That was definitely a game that they could have and should have won. I think Miami won't be that hard of a challenge for them. I would like to hear Chris's explanation for this, picking the Dolphins. Maybe it was just like an upset of the week or something. But I think Carolina's offense is just gonna be too strong. Obviously, with CMC, they'll be good, and then their defense, I think they'll be able to shut down Tua, who's been on and off all season. To be honest with you, sometimes he's really good, sometimes he's been really bad. And I think Miami, they're all right. I mean, they've had some good moments. I didn't have any high hopes for them going into the season, but I mean, Tua, I think he just needs to be put in a better position to win, because I'm not saying Brian Flores' job is on the line or anything, but I mean, I think it's pretty much a downgrade from what they had last year. So they need to figure it out. Probably get some weapons in the draft, offensive linemen in the draft. So I think Carolina wins this game, but Miami, they need to figure it out.
Yeah, like you said, I wish Chris was here to explain his pick, because I don't really understand it either. But hey, if it's an easy win for us, it's an easy win for us. Or Miami's probably going to end up winning this game after we're talking all this crap about them. Next up, another game, like I said, I think really good match between the Titans and the Patriots. The Titans, they kind of need this game if they want to keep hold of the division. But they've obviously had a lot of injuries these past few weeks, and it seems like they're finally starting to kind of take their toll a little bit. But the Patriots are going in kind of a different direction. Seems like they just keep getting better and better. As I said, when we were talking about the Bills, they are leading the division now. So this is, again, one of the best games of the week, and I'm interested, Roman, to see who do you have winning it.
Yeah, obviously, if AJ Brown was fully healthy, Derrick Henry is playing, I think I probably would have taken the Titans pretty easily. However, the Patriots, what have they won, like 4 or 5 games in a row or something like that? I mean, they're firing on all cylinders. If they win this game, Drew, they'll be first in the AFC, which is nuts. They'll have the tiebreaker over the Titans. So this is a big game for them, considering that they weren't even in the playoffs last year. Now they could be first in the AFC. Chris took New England. I'm going to take them as well. I think they're just too hot right now. Tennessee, they cut Adrian Peterson, as I already mentioned, so they'll be rolling in with Deontay Foreman and Hilliard. Not going to really make a difference against that Patriots defense. And then other than that, I think Mac Jones is playing some great football right now.
Yeah, talk about just a absolutely pointless signing with Adrian Peterson. I mean, he gets there, there's all the fanfare, oh baby, and then he just played what, like 3 weeks,
2-3 games, yeah.
Yeah, and then he was gone, so that was kind of pointless. It's gonna be one of those things where like you look back at 10 years and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, Adrian Peterson played for the Titans for a few weeks. Or actually, you could probably say the same thing about his Detroit Lions tenure. Oh yeah, that's right, Adrian Peterson played for the Lions for a season.
Yep.
When he kind of just like when Emmitt Smith, I think, played with the Cardinals to finish his career, which everyone forgets about too. But sticking with this game, yeah, it's crazy to think that. I mean, even if like to start this season, like the Patriots were like 1-3 or 1-4 or 2-4 or something like that. They didn't get off to a great start. They had just a bunch of like really good moral victories where they were in the game. And I kind of just thought that that's how the season was going to go, is that it was just going to be a bunch of like, they're a good team, but they're still young. They're still growing. So they kind of they don't win the game, but they're in the game and almost win it. But then they just started winning those games, and now they're, like you said, they're possibly going to be the first team in the AFC, which would just be insane. And Mac Jones, I mean, it's not like he's playing really well, but it's not like he's setting the world on fire either. He's definitely made some mistakes, but yet they're still just able to continue on rolling, which is really, really great. All right, so next up, not a great game, Philly, New York. I'm going to go first. I'm just going to go Philly because I don't really need to explain it too much. I think Philly, they got a couple game win streak going on now, I believe. I don't. They're another team that's kind of like a little frisky. Maybe they can sneak into the back end of that wild card picture. But overall, I think they're just a much better team than the Giants. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this game. It's definitely not great. But do you have anything you want to add?
Well, for Philly, like you mentioned, they're really hot right now. Darius Slay has had like 3 touchdowns in the past 3-4 weeks. So I mean,
Yes.
he's having a great season. Hurts has been getting a lot of criticism earlier in the year, but now I think you can obviously point to him as the franchise quarterback, no question about it.
Yeah.
They'll have 3 picks in the upcoming draft, and they should not spend one on quarterback. I'll say that. And then for the Giants, I mean, they have the offensive pieces to do well. It's just whether if Daniel Jones can find his rhythm. Hopefully, Freddie Kitchens gives them a new spark of energy. Obviously, they have Galladay, they have Slayton, they have Tony, who's been really good. I think at some points, he has a cannon. Obviously, if you saw that Monday night game, he threw it for like 50 plus yards or whatever. And then Saquon, he's back, so he didn't do a whole lot in his first game back. Maybe they'll use him more in this game. So maybe Giants can win. I'm not saying they're gonna, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. I really like Philly. I think
Mm-hmm.
I know we kind of bashed them to start the year a little bit, but I think they're just a solid team. They're not like, even if they sneak into the playoffs, they're not going to make any noise, but they're just solid. And I think Hurts. I know he didn't have like a great season, but now he's really kind of picked up the pace here recently, which is
Well,
great to see.
dare I say the division is still kind of wide open. I thought Dallas was going to be locked and loaded. You know, they're going to win the division by a lot, but now it's looking like it could be a lot closer than we expected to.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, I mean, Dallas seems like they always find a way to just fall flat on their face down the stretch. Also, so if that happened, and maybe that was the beginning of the end last week with all the injuries and just the pitiful performance.
If they lose this game versus the Raiders, it could be a lot more
We could be
worrisome.
looking at a Buffalo New England situation where all of a sudden, oh
Mm-hmm.
wow, Buffalo's second. What? So, anyway, okay, now we got Atlanta Jacksonville again. A game I don't think we need to spend too much time on. Two just teams aren't going anywhere, but they just have to play this game. I kind of want to go. Yeah, you're starting us off with Atlanta. So, do you have anything you want to touch on before
I think
before I pick
I
this?
think they activated Ridley, but I don't know if he'll actually play in this game. But it's just good to know that he'll be either back this week or next week for that Falcons offense who desperately needed him because Matt Ryan looks really bad.
Yes, and Kyle Pitts, because he's out there on an island. They're just double covering him, and he's not been able to do that much either. So I do think Jacksonville could win this game, believe it or not. Atlanta's not a good team, but I think Atlanta is a better team. So I'm going to put them as the winner, and we can move on to another game. Hopefully, we spend 5 seconds on Jets Texans. This is just crap. Three craps in a row. I think I got to go with Chris here. I think I'm going to go Houston. The Jets. They're just gross, and I think the Texans are. I don't know. They're frisky. They're in the games. They make things interesting. I don't know if they're a better team than the Jets, but they play harder. And I think talent wise, they're very close. I do think, dare I say, I know everybody loves Robert Saleh here in Detroit. They might be They might be better coached than the Jets. So I think the Texans are gonna come out on top.
I was gonna say this is probably the only time since these two teams are playing. This is probably the first time any of us are picking any of these teams to
Yes.
win. I think Houston they can obviously win. I think similar to the Bears Lions game, it's gonna be ugly competitive. The Houston Texans actually cut Philip Lindsay the other day, so that's pretty interesting to know. I thought he'd be the clear leader in that backfield, but looks like they'll just be David Johnson, Rex Burkhead, and then as I mentioned earlier, Michael Carter is out, so it'll be Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman for the Jets. Zach Wilson is starting this week, though, so it's good to have him back. And although he's been pretty bad, I think he'll be all right. Eli Moore coming on strong. We'll talk about him later. I'm actually going with the Jets in this game just to be different because I think they could still win. But Tyrod's been playing pretty serviceable football lately, and I think they obviously could win at home. Either way, it's a win-win for the Lions just because of draft pick order and stuff like that. The winner of this game will pick up their 3rd win, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is it no team has one win, right?
Nope, it's just the Lions with 0 and The Jags, Jets, and Texans have 2, and they all play
Yeah.
each other still. So all of
Yeah.
them could
So
have
we've
3 by the
basically
end of the year.
locked up the number 1 overall pick. Cool.
Basically,
And
kind of.
in in the year that there's no clear cut number 1 pick at
Well,
quarterback or anything.
Tibbs,
So
Tibbs. Well, I take
uh,
Tibbs.
yeah. Okay. Whatever. Okay. So we got Chargers Broncos. AFC West matchup here. I mean the Chargers had a nice game. Was that Sunday Night Football last week? That was a really fun game to watch as well. And then you got the Broncos who are just kind of still kind of in that AFC wildcard picture, but kind of floundering a little bit. Just kind of like an average team. So who do you like in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Chargers. I think Eckler has been playing some great football lately. Obviously, his 4 touchdown performance, not to be outdone by Jonathan Taylor, but the Chargers are just firing on all cylinders. They're clicking right now, and I think they've fallen behind a little bit. They've taken some bad losses the past few weeks, so they need to catch up to the Chiefs, who are leading that division. It should make for a really good showdown, good rematch when they play each other later in the year in LA. So hopefully the Chargers can stay competitive because I think they'll make the playoffs for sure. But I hope they win the division as well.
Yeah, this should be a pretty easy win for the Chargers. I think I know I was talking the Broncos up a little bit there, but that was just to make things more interesting. I think the Chargers are a good team. I think they're definitely going to be. They're one of the playoff locks, either wild card or AFC West division winners, especially with the Broncos and the Raiders both kind of floundering. It's really a 2-horse race there, like we all expected in the AFC West. Now, probably the third of the 3 games of the week this week: Rams, Packers. The Packers did not look great last week against the Vikings. That was a tough loss, and the Rams did not look good 2 weeks ago. They're coming out of a bye, so maybe I think that bye came at just the right time. They weren't looking great there for a while, and then they were able to kind of figure it out. I am going to go Rams, even though I am a Rams hater and a
Welcome
Matthew
to the dark
Stafford
side.
hater. But I think I don't know. I think that this is gonna be a great game, and I know I could easily see the Packers winning this game as well. But and you see you're going Rams also. But I think that bye, like I said, I think the bye came at literally the perfect time. The Packers also have some injuries, and it's one of those things where like how much longer can they withstand all these injuries? And we saw last week that they're going to need some of their guys back if they want to be the Super Bowl contender that we all think they can be. So give me the Rams because I think they'll be able to get it done. I think I'm interested to see if Odell will be more involved also after they had a whole extra week to kind of get him into the offense.
And for the Packers, like you mentioned, they're still dealing with a lot of their own injuries. Aaron Rodgers dealing with a worse case of turf toe. Apparently, I'm not really sure what that's all about. Apparently, it's on his pinky toe. So he's playing through it, so that's good for him. And obviously, Rashawn Gary, he was out last week. He'll probably be out again this week. Same for Aaron Jones. Like you mentioned, the bye came at the right time for the Rams, so hopefully they took advantage of it. Obviously, a classic rematch of Stafford v. Rodgers once again. So I'm looking forward to that game for sure. But I also have the Rams, obviously.
Yeah. And I guess I was about to say, and Rodgers owned Stafford, but Stafford beat Rodgers a few times also. So that's I didn't even think about that extra layer. That's good point by you there. Former NFC North foes facing out. That'll be interesting. Okay, now we got Minnesota, San Francisco. These were 2 teams that I know at least I wrote them off for dead a couple weeks ago, and they've really picked up the pace here. The Niners have 2 wins in a row, I think now, and the Vikings. I had a big win last week against the Packers. Again, I think both these teams are kind of in the same boat. I think this is a must win. I think whoever wins this game has a really good shot at making the wild card. Whoever loses this game is probably not going to. So I'm glad you get to go first with this one because I'm interested to see where you go, and it'll probably dictate where I go.
Yeah, Minnesota is actually in the playoff picture right now. So they're definitely a playoff caliber team. They've been coming on strong. They're playing some great football. And I look back through all our weeks of pick 'em and stuff. I've only picked the Vikings to win 3 times this season. So I guess that shows you how biased of a Vikings hater, quote unquote, I guess I am. But I think this is a very good matchup. I think both teams are, like you mentioned, playing good football as of lately. I feel like this might be a trap game for Minnesota because every time they play good, they always have a bad game. And San Francisco is a sneaky good team as well. I'm actually going to go with Minnesota, though, similar to Chris. I'll probably regret it later, but I think this is a toss-up game. But I think Minnesota, they were just too dominant last week against a really good team.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with San Francisco then because I think
Hmm.
now we each went on an island on 2 islands, I believe. I think if my quick math
Hmm.
is correct. So I'm gonna go Niners. I think this is gonna be this might be another game of the week because these teams are not as good as they're not going to win the Super Bowl, I don't think, but I think it's going to be a very, very competitive, close game with a lot of playoff implications as well. So just overall, a really good matchup. As we've already stated, two teams coming in with a lot of momentum, and they're going to need that momentum to carry on if they want to make the playoffs, maybe even make some noise in the playoffs. We'll see. But Cleveland, Baltimore, this is a game that had a lot more intrigue, I think, at the start of the year. But now with Cleveland, all their injuries and just kind of falling apart a little bit, it's not as intriguing. I think Baltimore is the clear-cut favorite here. If you pick Cleveland, you'll surprise me, but I think it's clearly Baltimore. You look at AFC, the best team in the AFC, I think it might be the Ravens at this point. They're just a very, very good, well-rounded team. Yeah, I think it's Ravens pretty easily, which is kind of sad to say, considering the Browns started the season with a lot of momentum, came into the season with a lot of hype, and now they're just kind of not really due to their own doing. They're just really, really banged up. There's no like typical Browns drama happening here. They're just injuries have really kind of played a part, and especially with Baker Mayfield, I think for sure.
Yeah, well, the Ravens also had a scare last week because they almost lost to the Bears on a really close game. Obviously, Lamar Jackson was not playing. We don't know his status for this game just yet. I expect him to play, but if he doesn't, Tyler Huntley will go again. But even then, I think they'll be in a pretty good spot. I mean, Cleveland, they've been playing some really ugly football lately. Even against the Lions, they barely won. The Lions probably should have won that game, not to talk about them anymore. But Baker just needs to be a lot better because I do think he's a franchise quarterback. I think he'll be the long-term answer for Cleveland, but he needs to play like it. And obviously, his weapons have been out. Donovan Peoples-Jones was out last week. Hopefully, he's back this week. Chubb, he's still playing great football. That's no question about it. And the defense obviously just needs to be a lot better. They didn't have any sacks last week, so that's always something that Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, they need to figure out too. But I'm gonna go with Baltimore. But if Lamar Jackson is out again, I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland won.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said, and I don't really have anything more to add. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see here what happens with Cleveland and with Baker Mayfield in the future and all those. Lots of question marks there for the Browns. And actually, too, if you think about it, the Lions should have beat both these teams. You had the doinker against the Ravens and then the Browns game last week, which I think, for the most part, I think Detroit outplayed Cleveland in several facets outside of quarterback. Again, going back to the Lions are not a bad team. They just don't have a quarterback. When you don't have a quarterback, you're going to be a bad team. So anyway, last game of the week here, Seattle, Washington. It seems like Washington's always on Thanksgiving Day also, so I was kind of interested to see that they're not on Thanksgiving Day this year. But this is kind of a whatever. It's just kind of a whatever game. I'll let you go first. Who do you like between these two kind of teams?
Yes, Seattle, they've been playing some really bad football, especially with Russell Wilson. I thought they'd make that flip instantly, flip the switch to playing some good, highly competitive games, and they have not. Washington, they've had some good wins back-to-back, and they're at home again. I think this will be a very ugly game. Washington could very well win. Chris took Seattle. I'm going to have to agree with him. Just on the facet that Russell Wilson is back to his normal self, in which case it should be fairly better for him because obviously he's much better than Taylor Heineke, and obviously I don't have Chris Carson for the rest of the year, so it will be an Alex Collins, Travis Homer duo, I guess you want to call it. But I think Washington could very well win. They're probably getting Logan Thomas back this week, so a lot going for them at the right time. Like I mentioned earlier, the division is wide open for Washington to maybe make a playoff push, but I think Seattle spoiled it for him, and I think Russell Wilson goes back to his former self.
Yeah, I obviously agree with you guys also. They're Seattle's. I think I said last week Seattle's not a great team, and I stand by that. But they're definitely more talented than Washington, even though Washington has looked a lot better these last couple of weeks, even with Chase Young out of the picture. So give me Seattle in a game that could be kind of close also. But I think it's time now to move into the fantasy picks before we get out of here. Do you want to give Chris's picks, and then also you can give your two picks as well?
Yep. So Chris's first pick was Michael Gallup, wide receiver for the Cowboys. That makes perfect sense to me. Obviously, with the Cowboys being without Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, Gallup is definitely going to step up pretty big. I mean, when they got Lamb, it kind of ruined, or at least lessened Gallup's opportunities with Dallas. But this is a great opportunity for him right now, as he's going into a free agency next year where he could potentially get a good contract. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. And then his second pick, was Tyler Lockett, wide receiver for the Seahawks, as we just talked about. This is just more contingent on whether Russell Wilson is himself or not, because when he's not himself, the offense sucks. So when he is good, he's feeding the ball to everyone. Lockett, DK Metcalf, Gerald Everett. I think they're all going to succeed with Russell Wilson, with him being himself. So I like Gallup a little bit more than Lockett this week just because of the matchup too. I think Washington has a better defense than Vegas, but I like both those picks pretty solid. And I think my first pick, as I already mentioned earlier, it's going to be Eli Moore, wide receiver for the Jets. He's had some blow up weeks the past 2 weeks. Very impressive. And with Zach Wilson at back, it could ruin that for him. I don't know what the chemistry is like for them, because obviously the past few weeks, Eli Moore has been playing with Mike White, Joe Flacco. If Zach Wilson can maintain that, I think they have a good chemistry anyways, but hopefully he goes back to, or Zach Wilson elevates Moore, and then Moore makes Wilson a better quarterback too. That's kind of how those young kind of chemistry wide receiver quarterback relationships work. So I like Elijah Moore this week against a porous Texans defense. So I think you can be comfortable playing Moore this week.
Yeah, so I love Elijah Moore. He was actually one of my picks, so that's why I'm trying to find another guy here. But yeah, I think he's gone very much under the radar. I know we talked about him a lot, like around the draft time, and then we kind of forgot about him, and then he's really come on strong these last couple weeks. The only concern is if he can maintain it when Zach Wilson comes back. But that's as far everything that we've seen shows otherwise. I think he's already emerged. I think he's surpassed Corey Davis also as the clear-cut number one receiver on that team also. And then to touch on both of Chris's picks, I like both of them, and I think I agree with you also. I like Lockett more than Gallup, because Gallup, it seems like he's kind of had that opportunity.
No, I said I liked Gallup more than Lockett.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, well, I like Lockett more than Gallup. Gallup feels like he's had that opportunity before, and he hasn't really kind of done anything with it. But he is a good player, so maybe he can kind of do it. They need him to do it, that's for sure. I mean, those receivers they had rolling out there on Sunday night were just like dropping passes left and right and just looked really brutal. So I'm rooting for Gallup more, but I think Lockett, I think he's a nice pick, especially if you traded for him when he was falling apart, or if you hung on to him when he was falling apart. I think with Wilson back in the fold, I think Lockett could have a really big week. But I will get to my first pick here. So I actually have Brandon Nyuk. This was the first guy outside of Elijah Moore that I wanted to go with. He's a guy, I think he was being drafted as like a borderline, definitely a wide receiver too. And I know in some cases I saw people were touting him as a potential wide receiver 1 by the end of the year. That obviously did not happen to start the season, but he has come on strong these last really 3 out of the last 4 weeks. He's had 10 points, which is nice. And then he also had 18 and 21. So he's going kind of getting momentum, playing well. And at the same time, he's playing the Minnesota defense, which is 30th against fantasy wide receivers. So I think Brandon Ayuk has a really intriguing matchup this week. And then I can just say my other pick as well real quick. It's a guy who I know we talk about a lot on the show, but he was a wide receiver 1 to start the year. He had 15, 21, 20, and then 31 points the first 4 weeks of the season. And then he just fell off a cliff when there was lots of quarterback issues on his team. But now that they have a semi-better quarterback in the fold, I would say he had a nice week last week, scored a touchdown, got 16 fantasy points. And that's DJ Moore. I think very similar to Lockett, who also had a really great start to the year and then really fell off a cliff. I think if you bought low on DJ Moore, if you hung on to him, I think he could be a really good player for you. And he's playing a Miami defense that's 31st against fantasy wide receivers in PPR. So I think both Moore and Ayuk could be really good wide receivers for your team this week.
Yeah, I'll touch on both those really quickly. Ayuk, I mean, many people were dropping him just because of how bad he was over the course of the year. I think he's done enough to be worthy of a roster spot in the past few weeks, like you mentioned. We predict a lot of high scoring shootout games, and usually don't turn out like that. But I think this game could be in the high scoring range, similarly to Minnesota's game last week against the Packers. I think there's a lot of offensive weapons, a lot of fantasy relevant weapons in this game. If it's a high scoring game, I think all will be good in this one. Ayuk especially, because Debo obviously he's been the main guy. Kittle has been coming on strong since his injury. And I think Ayuk, if it's going to be a high scoring game, he'll definitely get some action for sure. And then DJ Moore, I think Jordan picked him last week as a fantasy guy. I like him again this week against a bad Miami defense. So I like that pick, no problem. He has a good chemistry with Cam Newton as well. So that should be a good matchup for him as well. And I'll get into my last pick. I mentioned that he might be returning from injury off the IR. He was activated, but we'll see if he's active. But Logan Thomas, tight end for the Washington football team. I mean, the offense could be a lot better. I mean, they really only have Terry McLaurin. Gibson has been better as of late, but they don't really have another guy. Ricky Seals-Jones has been dealing with an injury as well. So if they get Logan Thomas, I'm sure he'll get back to a lot of targets, a lot of workload, similar to how he was before the injury. He's been out for a while, so hopefully he's good to go. And I don't mind the matchup for Seattle as well because they haven't been doing a whole lot recently on defense. So Logan Thomas, that's a good pick if you're looking for a streamer option at tight end because obviously Kelsey and Ertz are going to be out this week as Arizona and Kansas City, the only two teams on bye. So you're going to need a wide or a tight end to fill that spot. Maybe people dropped Logan Thomas when he was injured, or maybe you kept him in the IR all this time. But if Logan Thomas is there, definitely pick him up and start him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy. You already know how I feel about him. I like him a lot. Did not have a great season to start the year before the injury. Was not as good as I thought he was going to be, but overall, I think he's a solid pick. I don't love it obviously because, like I said, he wasn't great beforehand, but at the same time, I think it could definitely pay dividends also if you're in need for a tight end because the tight end position's really been brutal this year outside of Travis Kelce. And I guess Mark Andrews has been pretty solid also, but other than that, it's been pretty up and down. But yeah, I think that's it for the episode. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Roman, real quick before we get out of here?
No, I like the variety of the picks that we had. Unfortunately, Chris unable to be here, but happy Thanksgiving to you, Drew. Happy Thanksgiving to all the viewers out there, and hopefully everyone has a good week and good weekend as well.
Yeah, and actually, really quick, you probably got the same alert, but we just talked about Jonathan Taylor to start the show. We can finish talking about him. He's currently number 1 in Pro Bowl votes, which you can take that just a favorite fantasy fan thing. But I think it ties into fantasy because lots of fantasy is just based on popularity and the fact that Jonathan Taylor, which is very surprising that he would be leading in Pro Bowl votes. I think it's not like he's a massive name, but he's obviously been very, very good. But yeah, he's leading the charge, and then Cooper Kupp is 2nd, Travis Kelce's 3rd, Garrett's 4th, and Trayvon Diggs is 5th, which is also just all very intriguing. I think if you would have told me who's leading top 5 in Pro Bowl votes, I would not have picked those top 5. So that's very, very, very interesting. But yeah, again, like you said, Roman, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Enjoy. I know it's still kind of COVID's obviously still going on, but I know this Thanksgiving's at least for me, a lot more normal than last year's was for sure. So just have a great time, enjoy some football, and we'll see you again next week. But once again, we are the Zone Defense Podcast. We do these episodes of the NFL every single week, along with fantasy analysis and breaking news. So make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod. And search us on Apple Podcasts. Be sure to smash that like button and drop a comment down below. Let us know what Thanksgiving game you're most excited about, what you're doing for Thanksgiving, all that fun stuff. Also, let us know what you think about our fantasy picks, our pick'em picks, just everything. Just let us know your thoughts about literally everything and anything. Whatever you feel like putting down there in the comment section, just put it, and we'll try to respond to it as quickly as we can. But once again, thank you for listening to this episode, and we will see you next time.
Peace.